Hi everyone, Ashley here and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing how to make this card with some waving arms on a bear. So there's a pull tab that when you pull it, the arms on the bear wave as if he's conducting the P orchestra, which I think is adorable. It's using a lot of Lawn Fawn supplies, and of course I will show you how to make the rest of the card as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm starting with the ink blending, and for this I'm just using my ink blending mat, which is just that brown piece of material that you see on video there. And really, it's just sort of a slick surface that doesn't allow the ink to really stick to it, so it's really easy to clean up and it kind of protects your actual work surface underneath. So that's why I've laid it out. So I'm starting by just blending on some light blue ink. I'm using tumbled glass, and this is Distress Oxide ink, which I find blends so beautifully, and I'm blending it onto some Strathmore Bristol Smooth white cardstock, which is my favorite white cardstock for ink blending because I, again, find that it just really takes the ink very nicely and allows it to blend quite smoothly. I'm using my foam ink applicator to apply that ink, and I just did one color and allowed it to sort of fade out along the bottom, so you get that sort of strip of white at the bottom where there's no ink. So now I'm starting with the waving pull tab mechanism, and for this I'm using the waving pull tab starter die kit from Lawn Fawn. So with this die kit comes a few different dies, and the first one there cuts out the little sort of notch for the pull tab, so you can put that anywhere you want on your card, wherever you want the pull tab to be. You then use that little white stencil and you just press that right up, and it'll show you where to put that little rectangle die, which cuts out two little notches. So when you run that through your die cutting machine, which I've just done off camera, you get this notch cut out at the top and those two little rectangular notches down below. So off camera, I've gone ahead and splattered this with some different colors of ink. I used white and navy blue, as well as some Lawn Fawn liquid shimmer. And I put those paints individually onto my acrylic block and then just splattered them out using a paintbrush. And again, I've kept my mat here so that it's an easy cleanup. So I've gone ahead and let that dry off camera. Off camera, I also cut out a whole bunch of other components, as you can see on video here, including all of the images, which I cut and colored, as well as a piece of white cardstock cut with the same Slimline die, as well as a wavy border die, creating that hillside shape. Now I'm putting together the pull tab mechanism. So another one of those pull tab dies is this long rectangle with a hole in the middle. What you do is you take a little mini brad and stick it through the hole from the back, and then you can put the waving arms right on top and then close that brad. The key here is that those little wavy arms, when you die cut them, they die cut with a little X notched into them. And you just have to make sure that the X is on top, and then the arms will sort of be the right orientation. Once you've attached those all together, you can just put the arms through the little notches from the back of your cardstock panel. And at that point, your waving pull tab is pretty much in place and almost done. There's just a couple more little things that you could do to finish it off. So I'm just kind of testing it and making sure that it works here, and that when you pull it, the arms do move in those little notches. So because I'm using the waving pull tab die in landscape form on a Slimline card, the pull tab itself is a little bit too long. It would be the perfect length if you're using it portrait style on sort of an A2 normal sized card, but because this area is a bit shorter, the pull tab is a bit too long. So I just went ahead and cut it with some scissors to make it a bit shorter, and this is totally fine to do. You don't even see that at all. It ends up being tucked behind the card panel at the end of the day. So once that's cut off, the next part is to kind of stabilize this pull tab. And you do this using that little piece of white cardstock that is also die cut using one of the dies that comes in the set. The die also embosses a couple lines so that it's easy to fold this into each other to kind of make this little pocket. So once you've folded those edges in, you can put some glue or some tape, whatever you prefer, some adhesive right on the back, and then you can slide that little sandwich just beneath your waving pull tab, so in between the pull tab and your cardstock, and stick it down. And this, as you can kind of see, ends up being almost like a little sandwich, almost a little pocket, I guess, for your waving pull tab to pull through, and it kind of just secures it in place so that it doesn't move from side to side too much. So I'm really just pressing that down to make sure I have it right in place and to make sure that it's not going to move around. And once I've done that, I can then put some glue on the other little flap and then glue the top piece of that little pocket down to create the pocket. And again, I'm just kind of holding this in place to make sure that it's nice and dry and that it sticks together, and also making sure that I'm not gluing my pull tab itself, which would allow it to not move, so that would be horrible. So I'm kind of just moving everything and making sure everything still works. And once that's really glued in place, then your pull tab, as you can see, it's sort of locked in and it doesn't move from side to side. And of course it can still move up and down, allowing those little arms to wave, which is so cute. The last part of the waving pull tab is to just adhere a little decorative element on top that tells the recipient to open the pull tab. And for this I just use a piece of red glittery cardstock. This is actually from Tonic. It's their Ruby Gemstones cardstock. And by the way, all of the components that go into this card, all of the different supplies that I've used, I will be listing down in the description box below the video. So if you're interested in learning more about any of the supplies, definitely go check that out. So I'm just gluing that little decorative piece onto that waving pull tab with a bit of liquid glue and sticking it down with my fingers. And I kind of just folded it over the top so that it's on the front and back as well. Testing it out again, because of course you have to test this type of thing out at every step of the way, just for fun. So testing it again and it still works, which is great. So now continuing on to sort of building out the rest of the card. I cut out a card base for a slimline card, which is, I think I made it slightly larger than 8.5 by 3.5 because my card panel was 8.5 by 3.5 and I wanted there to be a little border around it. So I believe I cut my card base to be about 8 3/4 by 3 3/4. And this will still fit in a typical business size envelope, which is nice. So I glued some white sparkly cardstock down onto my card base for a little border, and then I adhered my card panel onto that with some foam. And you have to use foam when you're using this waving pull tab because it kind of needs some space behind that panel to move around. So you want to use some foam, and I just adhered the foam with double-sided tape. I used some liquid glue to glue down that wavy hillside, and now I'm gluing down the bear onto his arms. And how I did that was I put a little bit of liquid glue onto the top and bottom, so onto his ears and onto his feet. So the key here really is to just make sure you're not gluing directly onto the arms or else they will have a hard time moving. So just be careful where you put your adhesive. I've seen other people also just put a little glue dot down right into the middle, which I think would work just fine as well. So once that bear is in place, I can go ahead and adhere all the rest of the components to the card. I'm sort of just laying out everything how I want it to be. There's 6 peas that are caroling. I stamped and cut a little music stand with some music notes on it, a few little lanterns, some trees, and of course the little bear with his tambourine playing along. So for all these components, once I've sort of set them into the spot I want them, I just go through with my tweezers, lift them up, and then stick them down with a little bit of liquid glue. Sometimes I use foam squares for this, sometimes liquid glue, it just whatever appeals to you. So I finished off this card off camera by just adding a banner with a stamped sentiment that I stamped letter by letter. I thought it would be a little bit boring to have on video. I used an alphabet stamp to stamp out 6 peas a-singing in navy blue ink, which I just thought was a fun sort of punny sentiment, as well as some music notes that I die cut out of some white glitter cardstock. So that is the card for today. As you can see, this waving pull tab causes the arms to move like he's conducting, which I just think is so adorable. And I hope that you learned a little bit about building that waving pull tab card that you can use in your own cards. I actually believe that you could probably make this mechanism work even without the specific die set if you fiddled around with it a bit. So if you do try that, I would love if you left a comment and let me know how it went. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more of my cards, definitely head over to my Instagram account, which is linked down in the video description below, where I post a lot more cards than I do post to YouTube. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!